What if I told you that a routine drive home could shatter a meticulously crafted life? What if I revealed that the most powerful woman in the state was about to face the very prejudice her husband fought to dismantle under the most unexpected circumstances? It was a night like any other for David and Dr. Vivian Holloway. Returning from the governor's annual charity gala, their luxury sedan glided through the quiet suburban streets, a picture of success and calm. David, the renowned architect, navigated with effortless precision, while Vivian, a brilliant public health advocate and esteemed university professor, scrolled through emails, a faint smile gracing her lips. They were more than just respected professionals. They were the embodiment of accomplishment. But what the flashing lights appearing in their rearview mirror didn't know, what the two approaching officers couldn't possibly fathom, was that Dr. Vivian Holloway carried a secret title that night. She was the First Lady of the state, wife to Governor Marcus Thorne, and in mere moments, her world and theirs would collide with raw, unflinching injustice. This wasn't just a traffic stop. It was the spark that would ignite a firestorm. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth. David glanced in the rearview mirror, frowning slightly. "Looks like we've got company," he murmured, his tone even, but with a subtle tension. He slowed the car, signaling, and pulled over smoothly to the side of the road. Vivian looked up, her smile fading as she saw the flashing lights. A routine traffic stop, perhaps? But a knot of apprehension tightened in her stomach, a feeling too familiar for many Black Americans, regardless of their status. Two officers approached the car. Officer Brandt, burly and stern-faced, and Officer Ramirez, younger and seemingly eager. Brandt rapped sharply on David's window. David calmly lowered it. "Evening, sir, license and registration, please," Officer Brandt stated, his voice flat, his gaze sweeping over the interior of the car, lingering on David. There was no polite greeting, no explanation for the stop. David, ever composed, retrieved his documents. "May I ask why we've been pulled over, officer?" he inquired, handing over his license and registration. Brandt ignored the question, shining his flashlight directly into David's face, then Vivian's. "Just routine. Keep your hands where I can see them." His tone was dismissive, almost accusatory. "And you, ma'am," he said to Vivian, his light still glaring, "what are you doing?" Vivian, despite her discomfort, remained composed. "I'm a passenger, officer. I was just checking my emails." Officer Ramirez, meanwhile, was circling the vehicle, shining his light into the tinted back windows. "Got a high-end vehicle here, Brandt," he called out, his voice tinged with suspicion. "Looks like it might be modified." Brandt scoffed. "Likely story. Sir, step out of the vehicle." David's composure wavered slightly. "Step out? On what grounds, officer?" "I've provided my license and registration, and I've committed no infraction." "On the grounds that I said so." Brandt snapped, his hand moving towards his holster. "And if you don't comply, it'll be resisting arrest." His eyes narrowed, daring David to argue. The air grew thick with unspoken tension, the threat palpable. Vivian, witnessing the aggressive escalation, felt a surge of cold anger mixed with deep-seated frustration. This wasn't a routine stop. This was racial profiling, plain and simple, a dehumanizing power play that ignored their respectability, their success, their very humanity. She looked at David, seeing the familiar effort to remain calm, to not give them an excuse. This was enough. "On what grounds, officer?" David repeated, his voice strained but firm, his hand slowly moving to unbuckle his seatbelt. The threat was clear: comply or face immediate, baseless arrest. Before David could fully exit the vehicle, Dr. Vivian Holloway unbuckled her own seatbelt with a deliberate click, a sound that cut through the tense silence like a gavel. Her movement was slow, poised, commanding. She didn't shout, she didn't plead. Instead, she leaned forward, meeting Officer Brandt's aggressive gaze with an unervingly calm, level stare. "Officer," Vivian began, her voice clear, articulate, and resonating with an authority that instantly stopped Brandt mid-sentence. "Before my husband steps out of this vehicle, I suggest you reconsider your posture and your tone." You are currently engaging in an unwarranted, racially motivated stop and attempting to illegally detain a citizen. She paused, letting her words sink in. Brandt scoffed, about to retort, but Vivian continued, her voice gaining a quiet power that brooked no argument. Furthermore, you are doing so to the First Lady of this state. Officer Brandt's face, moments ago contorted in aggression, went slack. His jaw literally dropped. Officer Ramirez, who had been peering into the back seat, spun around, his flashlight beam wavering. First Lady, Brandt stammered, his eyes darting from Vivian's composed face to the luxury vehicle. Then to David, suddenly seeing them not as suspects, but as a powerful couple he had just grievously offended. The arrogant sneer vanished, replaced by a dawning, gut-wrenching dread. Vivian didn't break eye contact. Indeed, Dr. Vivian Holloway, wife of Governor Marcus Thorne. She reached into her handbag, not for an ID, but for her cell phone, holding it up. Perhaps you'd like to confirm that with the governor himself? I believe he's still awake from the gala. Brandt looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He visibly paled, his hand instinctively reaching for his radio, then freezing, realizing the monumental error he had just made. Ma'am, Dr. Holloway. I had no idea, he stammered, his voice suddenly obsequious, tinged with sheer terror. There was a report of a vehicle matching this description. A possible broken taillight. His excuses tumbled out, transparent and pathetic. Vivian arched an eyebrow, a flicker of cold amusement in her gaze. Officer, my vehicle's taillights are fully functional. And as for a report, I'm sure we can easily verify the legitimacy of that claim, along with your decision to escalate this interaction to the point of threatening my husband with arrest. Her tone was calm, yet each word was a hammer blow of implication. David, who had silently watched the exchange, a mixture of shock and profound relief washing over him, gently placed his hand on Vivian's arm. He knew she had this. This was not just about them anymore. It was about every other black driver who had endured this same unjust intimidation. Officer Ramirez, equally terrified, fumbled with his radio. Dispatch. Unit 704 to headquarters. We have a situation. Requesting immediate supervisor presence at Elm Street and Maple Avenue. It's urgent. His voice was barely a whisper, filled with the dawning realization that their careers, and possibly more, were about to end in spectacular fashion. The wail of the approaching sirens grew, a chilling promise not of backup, but of impending reckoning. Minutes later, a sleek, unmarked black SUV screeched to a halt behind the patrol car. Out of it emerged Captain Elena Rodriguez, a seasoned, no-nonsense officer known for her strict adherence to protocol and zero tolerance for misconduct. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, immediately took in the scene. Two shell-shocked patrol officers and the visibly composed yet powerful figure of Dr. Vivian Holloway and her husband David in their luxury sedan. Captain Rodriguez didn't waste a second. Officers Brandt, Ramirez, what is the meaning of this? What is the emergency you reported? Her voice was low, but carried an undeniable weight of authority. Officer Brandt, sweating despite the cool night air, fumbled for words. Captain, ma'am, we pulled them over for a suspected taillight infraction, but it turns out. It's Dr. Holloway, the First Lady. He gestured vaguely towards Vivian, his face a mask of mortification. Captain Rodriguez's eyes snapped to Vivian, then back to her officers, a flicker of profound disbelief and anger crossing her face. She immediately walked to the sedan, ignoring her disgraced officers. Dr. Holloway, Mr. Holloway, my deepest apologies. This is inexcusable. Her gaze was sincere as she looked at Vivian. Are you both all right? Vivian met her gaze, her composure unwavering. Physically, Captain, we are fine. But the dignity of every citizen who looks like my husband and me and has faced this dehumanizing experience is not. Her voice was calm but steel-edged. Officer Brandt threatened my husband with arrest for simply asking for a reason for the stop. This was nothing short of racial profiling, Captain, and it escalated dangerously. Rodriguez nodded grimly. I understand, Dr. Holloway. Believe me. She turned back to Brandt and Ramirez, her voice now a frigid whip. "Officers, you are both immediately placed on administrative leave, pending a full internal affairs investigation. Hand over your badges and sidearms. Now." Her command was absolute. Brandt and Ramirez, defeated, mechanically complied, their faces etched with the stark reality of their ruined careers. As the two disgraced officers were led away, Captain Rodriguez assured the Holloways of a thorough process. But Vivian knew this wasn't just about two bad apples. The aggressive, racially tinged stop was part of a larger, insidious pattern she and Governor Thorne had heard whispers about for months. A surge in pretextual stops and quality of life policing in certain districts that disproportionately targeted Black and brown drivers. This wasn't isolated, it was systemic. Vivian didn't wait. As soon as Captain Rodriguez departed with her officers, Vivian called her husband, Governor Marcus Thorne. His initial reaction was raw, furious concern for his wife and brother-in-law. But as Vivian calmly recounted the details, the governor's outrage hardened into absolute resolve. "Vivian," he said, his voice quiet but firm, "this isn't just an incident. This is exactly what we've been fighting. This is the moment. We are going to expose this, and we are going to fix this permanently." He immediately convened his chief of staff and legal counsel, understanding that his own wife's ordeal would become the undeniable catalyst for sweeping police reform across the entire state. The private injustice had just become a very public, political imperative. The fallout from the traffic stop was instantaneous and explosive. Officers Brandt and Ramirez, facing immediate termination, launched a desperate counter-narrative, painting themselves as victims of political overreach. Backed by a powerful, deeply entrenched police union, they claimed they were simply doing their jobs, implying David had been uncooperative and that Dr. Holloway had pulled rank. Their narrative, amplified by a segment of the media resistant to reform, quickly polarized the state. But Governor Marcus Thorne was unyielding. The private humiliation of his wife became the public mandate for change. He immediately announced the formation of the governor's task force on equitable policing, chaired by Dr. Vivian Holloway herself. Her first public address, devoid of anger but imbued with quiet power, resonated deeply. "This isn't about me," she stated, her voice calm but firm. "It's about every parent, every child, every citizen who has felt the chilling hand of injustice simply because of the color of their skin. My experience, harrowing as it was, is merely a spotlight on a systemic issue that has plagued our communities for far too long." The task force, with unprecedented access and federal backing from the Justice Department, quickly uncovered a horrifying truth buried deep within the police force, a de facto performance metrics system that implicitly incentivized racial profiling. Commanders, under pressure from Police Chief Harrison, had set informal quotas for traffic stops, pedestrian checks, and minor arrests in high crime, predominantly Black and brown, neighborhoods. Officers were rewarded for meeting these quotas, regardless of whether actual crimes were committed. Complaints were routinely buried by internal affairs. Whistleblowers within the department were silently transferred or sidelined, and the cycle of aggressive, biased policing continued, shielded by layers of bureaucratic secrecy. This wasn't just individual bias, it was institutionalized prejudice. As the task force meticulously exposed these practices, the political battle intensified. The police union launched a massive public relations campaign, demonizing Governor Thorne and Dr. Holloway as anti-cop and soft on crime. They organized large, defiant rallies, portraying police as under siege. The opposition party seized the opportunity, attempting to derail the governor's legislative efforts to pass critical reform bills. Mandatory body cameras, independent civilian review boards, stricter use of force policies, and comprehensive de-escalation training. Just as the reform bills faced a critical vote, a shocking leak hit the news. An anonymous source within the police department provided evidence of a special enforcement unit, an unsanctioned, rogue tactical squad within the force, led by Chief Harrison's most loyal lieutenants. This unit had been secretly conducting late-night sweeps in marginalized communities, operating without official oversight, and committing acts of brutal intimidation and unwarranted arrests, their actions eerily mirroring the initial stop of the Holloways. The leak included disturbing dashcam footage and internal memos confirming their existence and purpose. In response, Chief Harrison, in a desperate act of defiance, orchestrated a mass blue flu sick out, with nearly half the city's police force calling in sick, bringing law enforcement to a near standstill and creating a vacuum of public safety. The city plunged into a state of panic and chaos, a clear attempt to force the governor to abandon his reform efforts. The blue flu sick out, orchestrated by Chief Harrison, plunged the city into chaos, a desperate gamble to break Governor Thorne's resolve. Crime rates spiked, and the public, caught in the middle, grew increasingly fearful. But the chief and the union had miscalculated. They had underestimated the sheer determination of a governor whose own family had been victimized, and the unwavering resolve of a first lady who had walked through the fire of injustice. Governor Marcus Thorne did not yield. Instead, he galvanized the state. He addressed the public in a powerful, televised speech, not condemning all police, but shining a harsh light on Chief Harrison's reckless abandonment of public duty and the systemic corruption that allowed rogue units to flourish. He detailed the performance metrics system, the buried complaints, and the very real danger posed by the Special Enforcement Unit, confirming every citizen's fear. With the crisis escalating, he invoked emergency powers, bringing in the State Guard to maintain order and protect communities, effectively bypassing the striking police force. Simultaneously, his office, in conjunction with the now fully unleashed federal investigation, moved with unprecedented speed. The evidence was overwhelming. Internal memos, the leaked dashcam footage, and now, the raw fury of a public that had been abandoned by its protectors. The governor's legal team, led by a newly appointed, fiercely independent state attorney general, filed charges that transcended mere misconduct. The indictment of Police Chief Harrison on charges of dereliction of duty, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit civil rights violations sent a seismic shockwave through the state. Officers Brandt and Ramirez, along with the leadership of the Special Enforcement Unit, faced their own severe federal charges. Their aggressive actions and the systematic racial profiling they embodied, now fully exposed in the glaring light of justice. The trials were a landmark. Dr. Vivian Holloway's testimony was the emotional heart of the prosecution. Her calm, articulate recounting of the traffic stop, the dehumanizing treatment, and the chilling realization of systemic bias resonated with every juror. Whistleblowers within the police force, emboldened by the governor's unyielding stance, came forward, detailing the informal quotas and the culture of retaliation that had stifled accountability for years. The verdicts were unanimous and absolute. Police Chief Harrison was convicted, stripped of his power, and sentenced to prison, marking an unprecedented fall from grace for a state's top law enforcement official. Officers Brandt and Ramirez received substantial prison sentences, their careers and reputations permanently shattered. The Special Enforcement Unit was completely dismantled, its members prosecuted, and its very existence became a cautionary tale. The powerful police union, having overplayed its hand, faced federal oversight and a complete overhaul of its leadership. The impact on the state was transformative, an absolute, once-in-a-lifetime shift in the paradigm of policing and justice. Governor Thorne, with Dr. Holloway by his side, signed into law the most sweeping police reform bill in the nation's history: abolition of quotas. Any form of performance metrics based on stops or arrests was banned. Mandatory body cams and dash cams, with immediate public access to footage for all complaints. Independent civilian review boards, with full subpoena power and authority to recommend disciplinary action. Comprehensive de-escalation training, focused on community engagement and bias awareness. Enhanced mental health services for both officers and the communities they serve. A Vivian Holloway Act was passed, establishing a statewide office for civil rights complaints directly under the governor's office, ensuring that no such incident would ever again be swept under the rug. The Black community and all marginalized groups saw tangible change. Trust in law enforcement, once shattered, began the long, arduous process of healing. Dr. Vivian Holloway became a national icon, a testament to dignity, courage, and the unwavering power of truth. Her personal ordeal transformed into a monumental victory for civil rights, demonstrating that even the most deeply entrenched systems can be reformed when faced with an unyielding demand for justice. Governor Thorne, his leadership forged in crisis, became a beacon of progressive governance, proving that true reform isn't just possible, but imperative. The city and the state emerged stronger, more equitable, and fundamentally changed, all because a black couple was pulled over and the officers had no idea who she truly was. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth.